Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and thought I'd do one of these sit-down videos for you guys today. Get a sip of water. Give you guys a forearm shot. All right, let's talk a little bit about what I've been doing lately with using no lifting equipment. I'm using no straps, no belt, no wrist straps. Kind of gravitated back in that direction. And I felt like this is a video worth making because I actually saw, of all things, Joel Seedman make a reel saying that, and then he got clowned by a bunch of people who are like, wow, you're literally doing mat pulls with a high handle trap bar. They're giving him a hard time, right? But he was telling people kind of the same thing, that if you need these things to lift the weight, you can't really lift the weight. It's kind of a valid point. And here's what I would say, just because he does a lot of clownery doesn't mean the message is invalid. That's the thing. When it comes to an actual good message being put out, it doesn't matter who's doing it. Good information or a good message is a good message, even if you don't like the person saying it, right? And that's totally fair. Totally fair. And I agree with that. If you can't lift the weight without that stuff, you can't lift the weight. And I know that we make a lot of talk about neural drive and everything else. And well, if we have the belt, we can get better bracing. We can get a better neural response, maybe recruit more muscle fibers. For a while, I bought into that. But to be honest, guys, I don't think that's really the case. As someone who's trained with big weights at this point, both ways, I don't think that's the case. I don't. It's just not what I'm feeling when I'm working. And here's the reason that I say this. When we pull the stuff off, let's not even get into the supportive equipment that adds weight, like sleeves, because that actually does reduce hypertrophy. In other words, if you're pressing with elbow sleeves, your pecs are going to grow less. If you are squatting or leg pressing with knee sleeves, your quads are going to grow less. Period, full stop. Anyone telling you otherwise is full of shit. You are sacrificing gains for the sake of putting more weight on the bar. All right, but that's due to mechanical tension changes. Let's get over though, and let's talk about the good lifting and the bracing. One of the things that I've noticed, when you get respectable weight on the bar, I don't mean when you're squatting 225. When you're squatting a respectable weight and you have to take the belt off, or you're pulling a respectable weight, you have to brace harder. In other words, like let's say that your best 5 rep max is 405 on a squat, right? You pull the belt off, and that's what you've been doing. If you don't brace super tight, that first rep is going to fold you like a taco. Okay? Now people say, well, I'm trying to work my legs, but that is the point. If we are bracing harder, we are getting a higher intramuscular coordination. Even if we're forced to use less weight, we're getting a more robust training response. Okay? We're getting a more robust training response. You have to brace way harder. It teaches you to learn to lift better. It teaches you to use your core more when you pull the stuff off. And that was the thing that I had said. I used to say, well, I think that that's the case, but then we had all this EMG data coming out, and I finally had said, okay, I guess the EMG data supports it. But then when you look at it, the EMG data, EMGs are not a good test of what's happening with growth and hypertrophy. This is the problem. I've bought into them for years. I don't think that they're a good source of that, and a lot of experts actually say the same thing. They're not really useful for that. It's hard to say if they're even a useful tool at all, and that's a tough pill for a lot of us to swallow who look at those studies for years, myself included. But it's true. You have to brace harder without the belt. You do. All right, pressing, wrist straps. When I pulled the wrist straps off, I've always told people we should be squeezing as hard as humanly possible whenever we lift weights, unless it's a lift that we need a looser wrist specifically for. Arguably something like a dumbbell lateral maybe, in theory. But we should be squeezing as hard as possible. It will give us the best neural drive. And I have always said, well, I squeeze super hard, but once you have those wrist straps on, your hands are a little number. You feel like you're squeezing hard, but you aren't. You think that you are till you pull them off, and then you try to put some weight on the bar. Okay? Wear only wrist straps for a while, then take them off, and then try to press and think that you're squeezing. You're not. I found that I had to learn to lift better. It's harder. I'm lifting less weight without the wrist straps. I'm having to squeeze the hell out of the bar super hard just so that my wrists don't hurt. But notice what I did this last week. I was able to maintain wrist stacking on my movements. I have to be very careful how I grip it, how I set it, how hard I squeeze. But then it lines up correctly. And if we're squeezing harder, we're going to get a better neural drive. We're going to recruit more muscle fibers. When we lose that equipment, we have to squeeze harder. We don't have a choice. Okay? We don't have a choice. When you lose the wrist straps, you have to squeeze harder on the pressing. It's like when you lose the straps, you have to squeeze harder on the deadlift and on the rows. All right. We're going to get a more robust training response. It's going to force us to learn to lift better. What happens when we pull all this stuff off? We have to learn to lift better when we bench without the wrist straps. Or it hurts. Our wrists hurt. Potentially our shoulders hurt because then we're getting everything cocked back. Puts you in a bad position for your shoulders. We have to get everything tighter, squeeze harder, lift better. We lose the belt. What happens on our squats and deadlifts? We have to brace harder. It's forcing us to be better lifters. And when I look at it, I think it is forcing us to use more muscle fibers. And it's doing all of it with less weight. Because that's the thing, at the end of the day, it's letting us cheat. It's letting us cheat. And even worse when we start using sleeves. What's going on with that? We're unloading mechanical tension at the point of greatest mechanical tension in the lengthened positions. Because the sleeves are helping us rebound out of that. They're taking some of the load off of our muscles in the deepest stretches. Therefore, we're ego lifting. We're lifting more weight for less hypertrophy. That's like just using cheat reps. It's just like cheating. But that ego, because once people start benching with the elbow sleeves, they won't take them off. How many influencers you guys see who wear them, they won't take them off for any reason now? Oh, I use them to keep my elbows from hurting. Bullshit. You're using them because they let you lift 30 more pounds, 20 more pounds, whatever you're doing. You're losing training response. We're loading a heavier weight than we need to get the same quality of reps. Because it is unloading at the point of greatest mechanical tension. We're losing training response for the sake of our egos. That's not good lifting. And here's the messed up part. We're spending our money buying these products that do this to us. I have hundreds of dollars tied up, hundreds and hundreds of dollars tied up in belts, knee sleeves, wrist wraps. How many of you have done the same thing? For what? Make us worse lifters. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative. I'll talk to you guys next time.